Hi. I haven't done one of these videos in a while. I stopped doing my themed reading. Frig, my hair is so, ugly. I stopped doing my themed reading months and doing wrap-ups because I was not doing a very good job of reading. It started when I was doing my books about animals. And then I didn't like any of the books that I picked except for one of them, which was also terrible but good at the same time. It was one of those. And then I started having nerve pain again, and I was off work again, and I just felt like garbage all the time, and then I got COVID, and this. So anyway, I did manage to read some books since the beginning of July, so I thought I'd talk to you about them. Okay, so the first book that I have here is The Call by Pater O'Gillen, and I really enjoyed this book. It's interesting, and I feel like the storytelling is a little interesting as well, because you don't really get to know a lot of the characters, but you get to watch a lot of them die. I think I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. So this has been called a Hunger Games in a fae setting, which I can kind of see, but not really. So what this is about is this takes place in Ireland, where they, many years ago, had made a deal with the Fae people, which there's an Irish name for it, but I can't remember what it is in here, but it's just the Irish version of fairies. They had made a deal with them many years ago when they kicked them out of their home because the fairies used to live in Ireland, and so the fairies now live in this other land that they call the Grey World, and they essentially are allowed to take human children into their world at any time that they want with no warning and keep them there for 24 hours. I think it's 24 hours or 12 hours of the Fae world. And they chase after them and try and kill them and torture them and have fun with them. And if the kid can survive, they get sent back. It's a very small percentage of kids that survive, and it's kids between the ages of 13 and 18 or something that get taken. So it's not a fight for your life against other kids. If 2 of you end up going at the same time, you can work together and you can both try and get out alive. It's just trying to survive from the fairies. And they have these schools all over Ireland that you go to when you're 11 or 12, where you learn how to survive in the wilderness with nothing, because you also go naked. Your clothes you just disappear. It's called The Call. When you get called, you just disappear, your clothes crumple to the floor, and now you're naked in the fairy world, and they're all chasing after you. There was one main character that we got to watch and grow a little bit and see her interaction with her friends and stuff, but basically it gives us a lot of chapters of all the kids who get taken. So you don't really get to know them or anything. So it isn't particularly sad when they die, which I was okay with because they're all teenagers. So that sucks. So at least I didn't know them very well. And you get to read about all of these kids getting taken to this Fae world and being chased and being terrified. I did think that the scenes cut away at good parts. Most of them were fade to black. Some of them not so much, but they still weren't super detailed. But a lot of gross, disturbing stuff happens. It just didn't go into too much detail, which I did like. So I think if you are okay with a little bit of gore and a lot of suggestion of disturbing things happening and happening to children, then you should read it. If you're not okay with it, then this probably isn't the book for you. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I also really liked the way the fairies interacted with them. I just thought it was so interesting. It was disturbing, but it was so interesting because the fairies were having so much fun. I'm really sorry I'm calling them fairies. They're not actually called fairies in this. I think they're called she. Okay, the next book I have here is actually the last book I finished. Seafire by Natalie C. Parker. I enjoyed this book. I gave this 4 stars. So this book is essentially about badass girl pirates. Fantastic. It starts off explaining what happened to this girl's family 4 years ago. Basically, her parents and her friend's parents get murdered, and both of their brothers get taken away by these evil pirate guys that capture children and make them work for them. And so it's 4 years later, and now these girls have a ship of their own with 50 crew members, and they basically are on a search for their brothers to try and save them. Mostly this is just a fun book. for me. I didn't think there was like a huge amount of like character development. There were a few things that seemed a little out of place, the way like the love happened and stuff. It seemed a little strange to me, but overall it was really good. I really liked the first 100 pages or so. I read it like that. And then the middle chunk dragged a little bit for me, which is funny because the middle chunk I feel like was still very exciting. It just for me didn't seem to be moving the story forward. They just kept coming across more obstacles and more things that were stopping them from getting their goal, and they were just constantly like fighting back, and it was just a lot of description of them on their ship and fighting against the other ships and stuff like that. So I wasn't as interested in that. But then the last 100 pages came and I read it in one sitting. It was so good because there was like more to do with the characters. There was still exciting action, but there was like more at stake, I guess. And so I really enjoyed this. And I'm going to read the second one at some point. Ooh, the next one that I have here is Scythe by Neil Shusterman, which is an interesting one for me. I gave this 5 stars. It was very, very good. It was not at all what I was expecting. I almost stopped reading it a couple times because it was very upsetting to read a lot of it, to me, at least. I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about this book, they don't go into detail enough, at least from what I've seen. So basically, Scythe is about a world where they have basically figured out ways to get rid of death. You don't die of natural causes anymore. There's no diseases. And if you die accidentally, it's like mandatory to have you be brought back to life. They have a way to bring you back to life and they do it. But because of this, the world is going to get overpopulated. So they have these people called Scythes who it's their job to kill people. So from people's descriptions of this and from reading the back of the book, I thought the way the Scythes killed people was literally by like touching them or something. And then, they were dead. And I thought there was some other kind of story that was going to come about from this, you know? But that is not it. The Scythes can kill people however the fuck they want. They can stab them with a kitchen knife. They can drown them. They can do whatever they want. And a lot of the deaths are very upsetting and disturbing. And they can kill whoever they want. It can be a child if they want. It can be a 6-year-old. So it's about 2 characters who become Scythe apprentices, and it's about them learning about the world of Scythedom and the way different Scythes handle their jobs. And there's a group of Scythes who love it's called gleaning in this world. It's to be gleaned if you are killed by a Scythe. And when you get killed by accident, it's called deadish because you'll be brought back to life. But there's a group of Scythes who do mass gleanings, and they're terrifying. And there are 3 or 4 of them that you read, and it's like mass panic. Like it was super upsetting. It was very well written, and it was very well done. But I feel like that is something that people never talk about in the reviews, at least that I've seen. And so I felt like it was important to mention because it's mimicking exactly what happens in real life now. It's like, oh, hooray, a world where we don't die, but we still could die by going to the mall. They could just like lock the doors and kill everyone inside, just like someone could do with a mass shooting. Like it's like the problems with death and all that stuff have not been fixed. And now it's okay to do them. And but anyway, it creates a really good conversation around that. And that's what a lot of it is about like the morality of that and if what they're doing is okay. So I really liked basically the conversations and the thoughts that come up from it. And I also really, really liked the writing style. It was very calm. A lot of the stuff that was happening was panicky and disturbing and upsetting, but it was still calm, which made it a little bit easier to read. But there were a few times that I contemplated putting this down and not continuing it. But I did, because it was also very interesting. There was an interesting story. There was a big twist that... Anyway, I have ordered the second book from my friend's bookstore. So... there's that. I also read Tokyo Ghoul, Volume 1, by Sui Ishida, and I thought it was great. Not at all what I thought it was about. I thought it was about someone who becomes a zombie, but it's actually, so the ghouls in this are not zombies. They are a different species. They still like to feed on humans and kill them, But being bitten by one and getting away will not turn you into one, because they're not zombies. They're a completely different species. And anyway, he ends up getting an organ transplant from a ghoul unknowingly. Like, they don't realize that it's a ghoul when they give it to him, because it's very last minute. And in like an emergency situation. And so now he's part ghoul, and it's about him like coming to terms with it and not doing a very good job. And it was really interesting, and I really liked it, and I would like to read more of this. I also read Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness, which was the third and final book to the Chaos Walking trilogy. I liked it. It did seem a little underwhelming to me, and a little disappointing. Like, the way everything came together to me was a little not satisfying, and I can't give anything away, and I can't even tell you what this is about because it will ruin the first two books if you haven't read them. But a lot of people loved this one and thought that everything was tied up really well and everything came to the end that they wanted it to, and like technically it came to the end that I wanted it to, but not in the way that I wanted it to. It was very not satisfying, and I did think this book was too long. I thought, like, it went back and forth so much. Like, it was, I don't want to give anything away, but it was like, oh, this is happening. Oh, just kidding. Now this is happening. And then they would go back to the first thing, and then go back to the second thing, and then go back to the first thing. Like, over and over and over. And they could have taken, like, half of those out. Overall, it was really good. I just thought it was too long and too repetitive and not quite so satisfying at the very end, the way things happened, but it was still good though. And the last book that I have here is The Storied Life of A.J. Vickery by Gabrielle Zevin, and I really liked this. It was a lot different than I thought it was. For some reason, I didn't realize it was going to span over AJ's, like, entire life almost, which is silly of me because it says The Storied Life of A.J. Vickery, so it's about his life. But for some reason, I thought that was just what they decided to call it. I didn't realize it was going to span over, like, 15 years, but it did. And because it's so short, a lot of it felt like a summary. It was like I was getting a summary of his life. And so that I didn't really like. I wasn't a fan of that. I would have liked to have more of the scenes to be more in depth. But overall, it was a really sweet story, and I enjoyed it. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think those are all the books that I've read, or at least all the ones that I enjoyed. And I'm currently reading Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I'm halfway through. I'm really enjoying it. It's very nostalgic to me, everything about the setting, and it takes place in Barry's Bay, Ontario, which is fantastic. Anyway, I'll talk about this more next month, hopefully. Hopefully I'll have a little wrap up for you, and I will probably do themed reading for the rest of the year, like for October, November, and December. Just in the middle there, I was having trouble, so I will be back with a wrap-up at the end of the month, and then a themed reading TBR for October. So, yeah, I guess that's all. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!